An important skill for the grammar questions is to look at the answer choices first and start prioritizing what you're going to test, right? Which rules come to the mind first? Those are the ones we want to start thinking about. So I look at choice A because a period is a very simple punctuation mark. It only has one real purpose, to separate two complete sentences. So I can look where that period is and test it out. Do I have a sentence before? Do I have a sentence after? If the answer is yes to both, then we're good to go. So let's take a look. The short story Rogue Enchantments by Isabel Ibanez appears in Reclaim the Stars. Yeah, that's a sentence, so check. An anthology of fantasy and science fiction written by authors of Latin American descent. Ooh, that is not a sentence. It's long, but it is not a sentence. It is a long appositive, which means that it's a description of Reclaim the Stars. What is that? That is an anthology of fantasy and science fiction written by authors of Latin American descent. So it's hard to get into the grammatical reasons why the second part is not a sentence, because then we have to think about subjects and verbs. And technically, we don't really have a subject here. An anthology of fantasy and science fiction written by authors of Latin American descent is a long description. We never get into what the anthology is doing. It was written by them, but it doesn't say it quite like that. But for people who are trying to think about this grammatically, that might just be very hard to wrap your head around. Like, it seems like there's an action, it seems like there's a thing. Why isn't it a sentence? Well, it's much more structural, and it just is a thing you should feel. So when you have these kinds of long descriptive clauses, we're going to want to add those on at the end with a comma and then just move into the clause. So C is not right. And if we think about the while, there's no reason for it. It's not a while situation. It is this thing. There's no events in time. So this is just a weird thing to add. So hopefully you can hear that. I will say that this is one of the more challenging things for some people about the grammar section, is that ultimately to determine whether or not something is a sentence, a lot of it is just how things sound when you read them in your head. So if you don't have a good ear for that, some stuff is going to be hard for you. But try to work on it. Try to watch my videos. I always try to talk about it. And hopefully you can start to pick up those subtle things about English, about how the structures of sentences are supposed to sound.